Hello, everyone. It's John from Realvolve. I'm really excited today to be presenting to you. And I'm going to let a couple people come in into the webinar here, make sure people get settled. Wanted to get started a little bit early, just about a minute early, just to see if people can hear me okay and see me okay. So in the questions section of the webinar, you have the opportunity to ask any questions during the webinar, but you also can raise your hand and say, hey, I can't hear you. But just reach out, let us know where you're from, and if you can hear us okay. We have a lot of people on this webinar today, so I'm going to try to give a little bit of time for people to roll in. I'm not going to have my webcam on the whole time. I'm actually going to shift it over to the presentation deck. I have about 28 slides, but they're going to go pretty quick. And I think you're going to really enjoy what's going on. Hi, Richard. Thanks for letting us know that you can hear us okay. So without further ado, let's jump in here. Hopefully everyone can see my slides. It has the little light bulb on there, real estate lead generation for reimagined. So a pretty cool title, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Leading up to this webinar, we got a lot of questions about this webinar. And for one, they were asking me a lot about where did I see this crazy funnel wall? This funnel wall is actually a house outside Dresden. Actually, it's in Dresden, Germany, just outside the university district. And I actually got to see this funnel wall. But what's really cool about this, ironically, all the water filters down into the to the bottom of the street there, into one central location. So I thought it was only fitting that we continue to use this theme of funnels. And today is about real estate lead generation in a different way. So the second question I was getting was, does Realvolve offer lead pages, landing pages? Do you offer Facebook integration to generate ads? We do not. And today's webinar is not about that. Today's webinar is actually about a workflow that we actually use day in, day out here at Realvolve, workflow that real estate agents should be using to get buyer leads. So today, my main goal is to show you how to build the top of your funnel with buyer leads by using a campaign workflow that will generate a significant amount of new contacts that you can follow up with. So this webinar today is titled that, Real Estate Lead Generation Reimagined, because we're kind of flipping the thinking around what it takes to get leads, and it has to be your process. And if you don't have a workflow in place, you're going to be wasting a lot of time and energy and money if you're running Facebook ads, which we're going to talk about today. If you're trying to replicate a process that's not solid, if you're trying something new every time, it's not going to work. You're going to be spinning your wheels. So today's goal is definitely to show you what this workflow is capable of doing. So a lot of this, what you'll see today with this workflow is actually our internal process, and with regards to lead generation, how we go about our process to create a landing page, create thank you pages, create a follow-up email, and eventually create a Facebook carousel ad. Some of you that registered for this webinar actually registered through a Facebook ad and were sent to a landing page, which then you filled out your information, and you got probably 4 follow-up emails to make sure that you're attending today. So we actually use this process for this webinar to get you into the seat. So again, if that's not what you're looking for, I apologize in advance, but I really hope you stick on the webinar and really learn some tips and tricks about how we go about lead generation here at Realvolve that you can apply to your business through workflows. So that said, let's dive in a little bit here. So I just talked about some of the key takeaways for today, but I want to go in a little bit deeper. We have a saying here at Realvolve, begin with the end in mind. And based on my experience of executing hundreds of different marketing campaigns, this is the workflow that produces the best results. If the goal is to generate a steady and repeatable stream of leads, then the workflow needs to be designed with the following details in mind. So some key items on your listing landing pages. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to give you some key items that you need to think about that connects the landing page to the whole campaign. What type of contacts are you attracting with your lead magnets? We're going to talk a little bit about lead magnets and how they can dictate the quality of the lead that you're getting or the potential of conversion. So anything from a conversion, what I mean by conversion in your neck of the woods or your world would be whether you get a buyer lead that wants to work with you or somebody that's going to provide a referral about your services. So you can consider that as a conversion. So what type of people are you attracting with your lead magnets? We're going to talk about a simplified thank you page to deliver your goodies that you promise with the lead magnets. We're going to look at the graphics, the headlines, and copy for your Facebook ads. Again, this is the stuff that we look at with our workflow. In our workflow, we actually have pre-copy that we're going to use for our Facebook ads depending upon the goal. So I'm going to share that with you. And finally, automating your follow-up now that you have a higher qualified lead or contact. What do you do? How do you follow up? And Realvolve workhorse is the workflows and the templates. And I'm actually going to show you a workflow and some of the templates. And for those of you that stick around to the end, we're going to have a little bit of a bonus offer for you. It's going to be a campaign kit. So it's going to be 6 pieces of content that you can use with regards to your workflows or designing your workflows. And we're going to offer a workflow that I designed in Realvolve, and I'm going to show you that example later in the program. So stick around. It's going to be awesome. That said, before we dive in to the actual webinar, I do want to talk a little bit about myself. I'm Jon Yourkin. I'm in the marketing department here at Realvolve. I've been here over a year. And I have 2 boys, been married for, now 19 years this year. So we have 2 little boys. And we're fully immersed in hockey with them. So that's Colin on the left, number 22, Aiden on the right, number 34. And we had the excitement and exhaustion of having both boys actually win their state titles for their respective divisions. So it's been amazing. My daily gifts are not only working here with great people at Realvolve, but also my family. If I'm not entrenched in hockey, I've come into marketing at the most weirdest times of my career. I was a biologist at the University of Denver, studied biology, started working for a pharmaceutical company where processes were king. If you didn't have processes, you had poor quality. So I understood that you have to have inputs that go into the process and then have likely outcomes and predictable outcomes. So that's where I really got fascinated with workflows and was working with basic workflows in the pharmaceutical plant. I decided to be a product manager, got my MBA, moved on to General Electric, and watched digital and inbound marketing just completely take off. And that's where I really spent a lot of my time, over a decade of time, in online marketing. So I'm really passionate about marketing, really passionate about the customer experience. I think you can attest to that, to make sure that if you registered for this webinar, you were going to get a series of follow-ups just to make sure that you are having a good experience, and hopefully you have a good experience today on the webinar. So I'm very passionate about that. I'm always passionate about following the why. So if we're going to talk about lead generation as it pertains to a workflow, we got to ask you, do you know all the different types of online leads? I mean, of course, you got Facebook leads and you got your sphere of influence leads, but in particular with online, here's a little bit of a trick that I learned here at Realvolve. Dale Warner breaks down leads, real estate web leads, a very simple way. Basically, there are 4 categories. Your 100% purchase leads. This is going to be your Zillow leads, homes.com, realtor.com, Trulia. Basically, zero setup from the agent and it's mainly based on a budget. Now, you don't have to handle the messaging or the content, which is a convenience, but again, with that convenience comes with an expense. And basically, these are a little bit lower quality leads in comparison to the other buckets of leads here. There's organic self-generated leads. This is a long-term play. You basically need a search engine audience. So this would be something like Google, Bing, Yelp. You know, there's a search engine that basically helps bring your content in front of the person that's searching for that content. There's paid self-generated leads. These are more affordable. There's a moderate amount of work to generate that lead. But again, you're borrowing somebody else's audience. And this is really powerful with Facebook, especially borrowing that audience to target specific zip codes, specific lifestyles, specific interests. So these are the leads that you're probably getting from Facebook, Instagram, Google, or LinkedIn, if those are your marketing channels for paid self-generated leads. Paid self-generated leads. And then finally, your 100% owned leads. This is basically your database, and these really don't cost a lot of money once you acquire them. And these are the ones that you're going to nurture. This is your email list and your relationships. So today we're going to really focus on number 3 and number 4, paid self-generated leads and 100% owned leads. But before we dive into the actual ads and the tips on landing pages and the workflow that we've designed for you and this whole process, I need to provide some clarity on a workflow. So I want to do an impromptu poll on everyone on the line here. We got a really good population of folks here today, more than I expected. So we're going to do an impromptu poll. So I'm going to ask you, what is a workflow? And I want you to go ahead and type that in to the questions field there. So you Realvolve customers probably know what a workflow is in the context of our CRM platform, but I want to hear from the other folks, what is a workflow? List of actions, pretty close. I would say that's really close. List of actions, series of steps to get things done. Process, procedure, yes. Standard operating procedure, very good. At my pharmaceutical company, if it wasn't documented, it never happened. So we had to follow our SOPs, standard operating procedures. And when we deviated from those SOPs, it was called a process deviation. And with the process deviation comes poor quality. So very good. List of tasks to keep you aligned. Structure, organization, very, very good. That's great. Thank you so much for chiming in on that. So here is the basic definition of a workflow. The sequence of industrial, administrative, and other processes through which a piece of work passes from initiation to completion. And the cool thing is that you can automate this. But before we get more into the details of the workflow we're going to talk about today, here's a workflow that we use here at Realvolve. This is if we want to post a blog post or create a blog post or start from scratch. This is pretty much an 8-step workflow that we have. Before we even think about creating new content, we want to make sure that we have something available. If it's great, we make it better. If it's not so great, we decide either to rewrite it or just get rid of it and not clutter up the experience for our blog readers. So as you can see, it's a pretty preset process. I'm not going to go into details, but this is something that we follow here daily at Realvolve. And then once we get to number 8, we measure the analytics, we measure performance, and then we jump back on the train again, so to speak. We jump back at number 1, and then we make sure that we have a calendar reminding us 5 days before a blog post, this is what you do. So you can even think about, in a sense, 5 days before a listing hits the MLS, this is what you do for lead generation. And that's what we're talking about today. Great segue. So your new listing is hitting the MLS in 5 days. What are you doing? Obviously, you're doing all kinds of stuff, right? You're probably a little bit excited, a little bit a little bit nervous. You don't want to just put the sign in and pray, so to speak. What are the 4 P's of real estate marketing? I know that there's pray in there somewhere. We don't want you doing that. So you're doing a ton of things. So that is why, we kind of thought about how can we help you generate more buyer leads with a workflow. So let's dive into the buyer lead gen campaign workflow. So here's the nitty gritty with the workflows. You need to set up once and let them run continuously in your business, whether that's through Realvolve or whether that's through spreadsheets or little post-it notes. It's a process, it's a workflow. You only have to make minor changes to this for success. So step 1, 5 days before the listing, and you could change the days. I'm just saying figuratively, 5 days before the listing hits the MLS, you start working on your landing page, okay? And again, I'll be able to provide you some clarity on landing page services because Realvolve doesn't provide landing pages. I'll give you some ideas for those types of services. So 5 days before the listing hits the MLS, you start working on your landing page. Hopefully you have a template to work from that you can actually, you not necessarily populate the landing page, but use content that you've used before. Switch up some of the content so that it's inviting, so that it's warm. Maybe the tone of the property has changed. Maybe it's back on, it's a relisting. It's back on the market. So step 2 is your lead magnet. I'm going to talk a little bit about lead magnets here in a second. Day 3 or 3 days before the listing, you work on your thank you page. The thank you page is going to be where people land after they say, yes, I want to meet with you, or yes, I want your lead magnet, yes, I want your property report. They're going to go to a thank you page, and they're going to retrieve their goodies from that thank you page. About a day before the listing hits, this is when you jump into Facebook and start to create your carousel ad. And that carousel ad can be programmed, or not programmed, scheduled to launch the day your listing hits the MLS. And then finally, step 5 of this workflow is you're going to prepare your email response once you get leads from the lead magnet, okay? And that can be automatically triggered from Realvolve. All right, so let's dive in. The landing page. So this is just a basic example that I found on the web. I put some little circles out there to help us with our presentation. And after I get through this template, this example of a standard landing page for a listing, I'm going to show you one of a realtor's landing page for a listing, and you're going to really see the similarities. So let's get through it. First, your headline and your subline. Reassure your visitors that they've landed in the right place, and make sure that your headline is compelling and echoes the headlines that you're going to create in your Facebook ad. If there's a disconnect there, the visitor might not know where they've landed. You might lose a touch of credibility, and your brand voice won't resonate through your main page or your Facebook ad or even the landing page, okay? So make sure that you're calling out the specific property, and use your sub headlines to introduce any unique details about the listing. Plenty of light, great schools, great restaurants in the area, urban, urban look or modern feel, things like that. So the second thing is your call to action, or what we call in the marketing world CTA, call to action. This is a call to action or a button. It's in the top right, number 2. Again, not taking over the full, what we call a hero image of the landing page, but it's there that somebody can click. Usually when you're going to exit the page, you're usually clicking up at the top right, or in the middle of the page. So when you're scrolling with a mouse or even your phone, usually people are about to exit the top right of the landing page. Of course, these are the studies that I've read about landing pages and where to place certain things, what colors to use. So don't offer more than one message in your CTA. For this campaign workflow, you'll want something along the lines of get the house facts report, download the free property report, something like that. So your listing intro, provide additional information by showcasing the must-know aspects of the listing. Call out the price if needed, the address, any key amenities, and then what we're going to recommend is that you fill in. There's a paragraph right underneath some of the address there and the price. That paragraph, that's when you start to add some of the additional details around the property to really pull people in. Image gallery, make sure that you utilize the gallery option on your landing page. Make sure that those graphics match the carousel ad in Facebook. That's going to be important just to build consistency. And don't overdo it. I think the best practice approach for listings is anywhere between 5 to 12 pictures. 5 is the bare minimum. 12 is probably a maximum. If you go over 12, a person can get lost, and then they're just going to bounce, and they're not going to provide any further information. And then finally, 5, 6, and 7. 5 is the listing overview. This is the space on the landing page. Just point out more amenities of the listing. Don't copy your MLS. I've seen that before on some landing pages where it's just a laundry list of amenities, which is cool, but I just want a brief overview because I can find additional information on the listing. And again, the purpose of this landing page is not necessarily to show the listing, it's actually to attract somebody to click on that call to action to get a property report, schedule a meeting with you. Some landing pages, which you'll see in the next example, actually have a second call to action. It's usually halfway in the page or it's further down on the bottom. This is usually something that connects with the original call to action up at the top, but it also is something like an additional call to action. Like if somebody doesn't want to download the report, but still wants to get some more information, they can contact you. They might just leave their information through that call to action. And then finally, I'm a big stickler on this, is a clean and uncluttered footer. Now I've seen in the past where people really load up their footers with a lot of text and a lot of text links. And that's a challenge because that can show you really don't know what you're trying to offer. You're really not organized with where you want this visitor to go, or you're saying, hey, go ahead and bounce off this page, go somewhere else. Just make sure that the footer is uncluttered and clean. It's really, really important with landing pages. So here's an example. This example is from Kendall Young. Kendall, if you don't know Kendall, Kendall is our self-proclaimed director of excitement. And actually, this is one of her listing landing pages. So let's find some of the items I just spoke about. She's very meticulous. If you don't know Kendall, she's very meticulous about her workflows. So she has a workflow somewhere in her library around what needs to go on her listing landing pages. And it's a repeatable, predictable process that allows her to scale her business and attract different types of buyer leads when she needs to attract buyer leads. The goal of this landing page is what? It's an open house. So all the call to actions are centered around the open house. And if you actually go out to the page and click schedule a showing, this is the lead magnet. So basically, when you click on that call to action, a form pops up, and this is the form that will pop up in the middle of the screen. This form is really awesome, and I really need to compliment Kendall on this, because in the marketing world, the more form fields you have, it could be a friction point to capture the essential information. So what she's done here is that she's created 2 columns. So the form looks shorter and it's easier for a person to put in their information. If you also notice that all the fields and form fields are actually required, and that's okay too. when you start to make things unrequired, people aren't going to fill out the information appropriately, and they might just put in some false information as well if it is required. Don't get discouraged. There's also Google and there's also LinkedIn. So that's a little tip for you. If you get somebody first name and last name and the email address, and you know they're in the area, in the state, you can also go on LinkedIn and see if they work in the area. So that's just a little tidbit there. Let's also look at some of the other elements of this landing page. Oh, the gallery. I really like this gallery. It does not switch too quickly or too slowly. I love her little subheadline with the charming cottage and award-winning school district. So that's very similar to what we were talking about on the previous slide. View a 3D model. So she's offering the person, if they can't schedule a showing or can't see the property at the open house, you do have the opportunity to have a great experience at looking at the home. I love the paragraph. She calls out the times that it's available for the open houses. And then just looking at the bottom, there's her, it's almost a third call to action, but there's her contact, Kendall. And she also provides the location of the property, and I love her footer. It's uncluttered. So as I mentioned, here is a resource for you, Hob Media. They basically specialize in WordPress websites. WordPress is the platform for real estate. So if you need anything along those lines, check out Hob Media, check out WordPress. Lead Pages also offers landing pages, very similar to the landing page that I showed you on the previous slide. But again, there's several opportunities for you to find a service that will help you with landing pages. And again, Realvolve does not provide landing pages. I have a question here from Richard. What form vendor does she use? Actually, this is it's a plugin on WordPress. So if you have a WordPress site, there's also zip forms. There's also conversion funnels, or I think it's conversion funnels, that also provide forms. Typeform is another form provider out there that you can embed in your website. You could do a lot of cool things with Typeform. They're up and coming to provide more of a better experience around filling out forms, where you can actually program if-then scenarios with the forms. Like if they put in their phone number, take them right to address. If they don't fill out the phone number, prompt an alternative phone number. So you could go really crazy with this stuff. So the lead magnet, they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. The one here is an example of one I got right before the July 4th holiday. I think it was a Sunday night. I was at home and I was just kind of perusing Facebook, and a ad popped up in front of me. We live in Stapleton, just outside Metro Denver. It's a popular place. A lot of for sale signs come up and go down, and it's a popular place. And sure enough, I saw this ad, and obviously it was targeted to me based on my zip code. And what was really cool was they had this this ad that says open house and 4th of July barbecue party. What you're looking at here is the actual lead magnet. So I clicked on the Facebook ad. It took me to a landing page. It had some property pictures. It had some opportunities to fill out the information. How many people will be coming to this barbecue party? The cool thing about this is when I filled out my information, I went to the landing page and it said download the flyer so you don't forget. So I downloaded the flyer, and this is what I got. And I had to cut it off because it was like almost like a brochure, kind of an infographic. But yeah, what they did was they offered a barbecue party at an open house. We actually went, and they offered a fireworks viewing party for the people that actually were at the open house. So that was really, really cool. So you can go nuts. It doesn't have to be a property report, but make sure it just connects to the landing page and what you're offering. So again, really get creative if you have to. Those are lead magnets. The thank you page, again, this is the way to say thank you. This is you kicking off your relationship with your new prospect or contact. You want to make sure you're showing appreciation quickly for their interest in your listing by saying thanks. And that's the only way you can. Make sure you bring your brand elements in here and your voice and your tone. Make sure that your brand voice is aligned not only with the thank you message, but also the landing page. And if you are going to put your logo right up here in the top, I don't know if you could see my mouse. There it is. If you're going to put your logo here or your link to your company information here, just remember that people are going to bounce away from that thank you page and they're not going to click on what they filled out the information for. So just be cautious if you're going to put additional links and calls to action on your thank you page. Keep it simple. All right, now the fun begins. I love Facebook ads because of the targeting that we can do here at Realvolve, but also the targeting that you can do. We can get very specific on our targeting, or we could get very broad. But I like Facebook ads because they're visually appealing, and they give us the opportunity to not only provide more imagery, but also have a simplified ad if we need it. Very different than Google Ads. So a couple things here. Your ad headline, after the image, your ad headline is the first content that people will consume. And write it, you got to make sure you write it with the understanding in mind. You got to say the number one most important thing about that listing and say it concisely. And you can surely focus on any amenities or highlight a unique value proposition of the property, like vintage charm, unbeatable location for a new family, etc. But just really remember that your ad headline is very, very important. The Facebook calls to action. Now, this is a little bit different than a call to action on a landing page. Facebook really does limit you on the number of calls to action they offer. We always use learn more or contact us. I've also seen that those built-in buttons, number 2 there is message us. Be careful there, because if you don't have your Facebook Messenger set up to receive messages, somebody will just be sitting in no man's land. So you have to make sure that you have that set up before you start to consider adding that to your ads. But I've seen it done before. It creates a conversation rather than a click. We always want conversations as sales and marketing people. The listing copy is very important. The message portion of your Facebook ad is a secondary hook. Think of it that way. A secondary hook for you to quickly win the person's interest. Make it short and sweet, and everything that we've heard here at Realvolve about excellent results for attracting buyer leads, just asking other agents out there, is start with a question. You looking for a new home? Based on your targeting and what you're trying to achieve in this context of this webinar, it's buyer leads. So obviously, I would be asking, if I were creating ads for my listings, looking for a new home, I would say that's a pretty good hook, secondary hook. And then your images, make sure your images for the carousel ad are the right size. After the webinar, I can actually provide you some of the sizes that work best, not only for Facebook, but for Instagram. I know it's always frustrating when I load an image and it has a little red explanation point, like you're not smart enough to figure out the sizing on Facebook. So it always frustrates me. So I always have to keep in mind in my workflow, in my daily tasks, if I'm working on a Facebook ad, make sure it's a certain size. And when I'm creating my images, I have that size as a Post-it note on my window in my office to remember to use 1000 by 667. So that's just how I remember it too. Great, moving along, having fun. So hopefully this is valuable information, but in the campaign, the campaign workflow kit, we're going to give you a special link for the opportunity to download this kit. There's 6 pieces of content that you can use for building and designing your workflows. This is a really good resource for you. This is Facebook ads for realtors. tips for audience targeting. For the first-time home buyer, this is a option in the audience. So when you start to create your Facebook ads, they're going to ask you, who do you want to target? And you can actually target people that are first-time home buyers. And this is under the section called behaviors and residential profiles. So there's all kinds of different interests out there. And a real quick story, I didn't have 6 million to run a Super Bowl ad, but we created this really cool video of a fisherman trying to fish, trying to use every way possible. It's a 1-minute ad, and he brings out a flute and he's playing a flute to try to attract fish. And the whole thing was about leads. You know, we're trying to find leads. All of us marketers and sales reps are trying to get leads, and there have to be qualified leads. So love this video, put it together. It's been a hit, and I wanted to run during Super Bowl. So what did I target? I actually targeted New England Patriot fans that were realtors and Philadelphia Eagle fans that were realtors. And I ran this ad. I think the headline was, like our Super Bowl ad, let us know. And it was one of our best days, best reactions, best traffic to the website. And I only ran it during Super Bowl Sunday. So again, you could get very, very targeted. You could get creative with this, but we're going to give you this piece of content to help you target better. The best ones that we find are lookalike audiences. You could do this by exporting your database and creating a custom audience in Facebook. When you do that, you'll then create a lookalike audience based on that list, and Facebook will say, huh, this big list of 2.6 million people in this zip code looks like the list that you just gave me. So that's really important. And that's why I love Facebook targeting. So we're going to give you this piece of content in the campaign kit. So finally, the email. This is your follow-up. This is the time to follow up. For those Realvolve fans out there, this is a preview template from an email that I created in Realvolve. So when you get a lead from your lead generation efforts, and you program the workflow correctly, this is what will trigger. You want to make sure, though, that your subject line connects with the actual lead magnet and also the landing page. So as you can see here, the subject line is, did you get a chance to review the property report? This is a merge tag you could put in the subject line. First name gives a little bit of a customized feel, a warm and fuzzy, if you will. And for those of you that know Realvolve, when we do send out communications, we do put your name in the subject line. So again, you have the ability to use merge fields in Realvolve. A couple things with this email: if they did not click on the link on the landing page, they did not get your property report. They did not get your lead magnet. They did not get what you promised. So this is the second opportunity to follow up with them, saying, if you didn't get a chance to read it, go ahead and follow this link. And there's the call to action, request a showing. So again, you're always trying to be able to follow up. You're always trying to provide a better service, and you're always trying to attract people to become potential referrals in the future. Oh, I had a question come in about the size, the picture size for Facebook. The size that is most successful for us at Realvolve is 1,000 by 666. So that's 1,000 wide, 667. Sorry, 667. I don't like the number 666, obviously, but 667. And then you can also crop it when you're in the ad editor in Facebook. So that will help. So hopefully that answers your question, Lisa. Great. All right. So if this is a repeatable process, it needs to be a workflow. So let's jump into my demo account here. These are some screenshots from my demo account. In case you're wondering, I am not a real estate agent. I just like really cool homes. And this one here is Derek Jeter's home outside Tampa Bay, Florida. And as you can see, This is the property field. So I'm looking at properties in Realvolve. That's with this. I only have 3 properties. So that's the property area. And then you could see that there is a workflow associated with it. So it's going to be listed on July 20th. And sure enough, I've already initiated a workflow for this property. So let's kind of go through what this workflow looks like. So when you go into Realvolve, there's an opportunity to edit your workflows. So this is the workflow editor. What I want to point out though is that I'm just going to take you through step 1 of the 5-step process we've just discussed on all these slides. So 5 days before the listing hits the MLS, this is what you're going to do, and it's assigned to the marketing assistant. Now, if you have to make adjustments, you can. So you can make adjustments of who to assign this to. You can attach different parties. You could schedule when this happens, whether you don't, if you have 5 days or 10 days, or you just really want to take your time creating all of these pieces of collateral for your listing. You can set it to 10 days or 20 days. It doesn't matter. You have the opportunity to do that in Realvolve. The priority, whether it's a high priority and the ranking factors, remind you or remind the person that this is assigned to, and you could set the frequency. Also, I want to point out that in this workflow that we've created, basically all the checklist items that you see on the left, right here in this left column, is everything I presented on, right? So what we've created is that when you initiate this workflow, it's going to send an email to the marketing assistant or whoever you assign to this workflow associated with this listing, that same sort of, I'll call it a workbook. So headline and subheader, it has the actual copy of everything that I just presented. Call to action, what do you put in there? Listing and property intro, what do you put in there? So everything for this, the work that has to be done is in this process and in that email. So let's take a look of how to initiate this workflow. Kirk Hammett from Metallica. Metallica is one of my favorite bands. We got the listing. Awesome, what do we do now? So we initiate the workflow. We start the workflow, and Realvolve is going to ask which workflow is this property, or which workflow should I run with this property, and you select the workflow and then the property. Once you initiate that workflow, it's going to ask you a series of questions around the activities associated with this workflow. So again, I just presented on all 5 steps, and this is again going to keep you organized and efficient. You can also assign the task to someone else other than the marketing. Well, if your marketing assistant is Jon Yourkin, you can actually assign it to somebody else if John's on vacation. If I'm on vacation, I can actually assign the workflow and the tasks to someone else in my absence. I can also change the dates. So the date in the MLS is July 25th. And so what Realvolve's done for me here is pre-populated all the dates associated with all the to-dos and the actions needed to be completed in this process or this workflow. So if I need to change the date to July 25th, it's going to then back calculate when I need to do my landing page, when do I need to do the lead magnet, when do I need to do the thank you page, when do I need to set up my Facebook carousel ad. So pretty cool. And then once I initiate and finalize that, what I want for this workflow to execute, basically what's going to happen is that it's going to send you an email. Realvolve is going to send you an email and say, hey, it was successful. So I have a couple questions here that I want to just answer before I go on to the next step. So what form vendor? I believe I answered that, Richard. It's a Typeform, or there's plugins through WordPress. Lead Pages also offers a certain type of lead form, but if you're going to work with Lead Pages, definitely ask them about the different options connecting that to your landing pages. And then, can I see who opens the emails? Yes, you can. We have email reporting now in Realvolve. So there is a selection you'll do in the template editor for tracking the email for reporting in Realvolve. So yes, you can see who opens the email. Great questions, great questions. So just real brief before we get into the special offer, workflow templates, meet your new marketing assistant. So templates in Realvolve you can use for data entry, checklists. So we showed you the checklists, we showed you the email templates. In this workflow, we did not offer a text follow-up, but you can certainly do that, especially if you're asking for their mobile number in the form. Now, one thing with your landing pages, we have a service to help you set up a Zap to try to get your leads in. So if that's something that interests you, I'll go ahead and send a follow-up email, and I'll get you pointed in the right direction if that's something that interests you about using Zapier to pull in lead information into Realvolve to trigger these workflows, trigger the emails, or trigger the text messaging. Campaign template, that's exactly what this whole webinar is about. Task templates we talked about, and reminders. So what we built into this workflow is to have reminders in Realvolve. So it could be an email reminder, it could be an alert to remind you, hey, to get started on your workflow campaign. So in summary, I'm gonna really breeze through this. The key to filling the top of your funnel with buyer leads is a solid, repeatable process. Definitely begin with the end in mind when you're talking about or wanting to present lead magnets to your visitors. Make sure that the calls to action are clear and that you're sending visitors and you don't want to be sending visitors in different directions. So make sure those calls to actions are clear. Facebook ads are a great channel for paid self-generated leads that you can target to find new buyers. There's a bit of science between a scalable or repeatable process and the specific outcomes you are going to see success. So if you have a repeatable, scalable process for lead generation, for following up with contacts, you're going to be more successful. You're going to have a better peace of mind. With workflows, you'll be able to concentrate on following up with more qualified buyers, specifically if you're asking them for additional information and they're actually downloading things from your landing pages. And this is my workflow, actually, for all my campaigns at Realvolve that includes landing pages or ads. The key is in the design. So again, most of you on the webinar today actually signed up through Facebook. Basically, we were sending you from the Facebook ad to a landing page that had my little picture on it, some really cool graphics, some information around the webinar, what time it is. You filled out the information, and you were, I believe, brought to a thank you page that actually had a lead magnet there that you can download. I think it was the 5-step infographic. That's part of your information kit. And then we followed up with your form submission with an email from Cassie with regards to here's your 5-step infographic. So this is what you're going to get. After the show, I'm going to send out a link to this campaign workflow kit. In this workflow kit, you have the workflow checklist, a realtor campaign workflow checklist, which is key. This is everything you need to execute this workflow with or without Realvolve. So a huge opportunity to kind of take a step back, see what you have, see what you don't have, and see what you need to improve upon. Lead gen workflow checklist, most of you got that if you registered for the webinar. Tips for Facebook audience targeting, I showed you that earlier today in the presentation. Places to find your audience, this is an infographic showing where to find your audiences on social platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I believe LinkedIn. Lead gen campaign workflow guide. Most of you got that earlier before the webinar. That's that really nice guide that has the gray background and the red font and the red text. And then a lead gen campaign workflow workbook. That's a mouthful. You're also going to get that. So here are a couple of items that you'll be getting. Go to go.realvolve.com/campaign-workflow-kit-buyer-lead-generation. I know our URLs are long because we do that for the competition, so they don't copy us. So I have a question around the tasks. Are they related to a transaction, or can it be a generic to-do list? It can actually be a generic to-do list. It doesn't have to be related to a transaction. How I set up and design this workflow in Realvolve is that I assigned it to a property and not necessarily a contact. So that's important. When you're going to start running workflows, you got to make sure that you're, are you using this for contacts? Are you using this for properties and listings, or are you using it for the transaction? So the to-do list can actually be associated with the property, or it can just be generic. You could just make sure that you're sending the to-do list to the right, or assign it to the right person in Realvolve. Great question. All right, so I'm just going to leave that up there for those of you that want to go to that landing page. You're going to get this. You're going to get this kit. It's a zip file. It has the 6 pieces of collateral in there. And as a bonus, if you want the buyer lead generation workflow, it's one workflow. Like I showed you, it had 4 internal worksheets, 4 templates, 1 follow-up email template. We priced this at $99. It's yours for free if you want it. Customers, go ahead and write sales@realvolve.com. In the subject line, just go ahead and put, I want the buyer lead gen workflow. Joe or Tara will be available to reach out to you, contact you, and make sure that they can get that into your account. So that's pretty awesome. And the fans of Realvolve, if you do not have an account, go ahead and start a free trial. You can do that at realvolve.com. There's a couple areas where at the top right, you can either log in or get started. There's various places on the home page where you can click on to start a free trial. So pick a plan that's best for you or your team, and you can start a free trial there. I have a couple more questions here before we sign off. Can you please email the link? Absolutely, I'll email the link to you once I get off the webinar. I know it's a long URL. We do that so no one can copy us. We're trying to figure out what we're doing. It's stiff competition out there. But again, it's if you have a solid process and you're confident that that process is producing great results, you can refine as necessary to scale. But you need a good foundation, and that foundation is understanding the goal and then building around that goal, and making sure everything is connected through your workflow. And again, if the workflow is not working, then take a step back, ask for help, ask for suggestions, reach out to your coaches if you have one, and say, hey, I was thinking about this for a lead generation campaign associated with Facebook ads. What do you think? What should I look for? And I'm sure they can provide you some more details around that, probably better than I can. But over a decade of experience in online marketing, I've refined this process for you. I know that most of you that signed up for this webinar probably appreciated the experience you had from start to finish. And again, we'll be able to follow up with you and provide the information that we presented here. This webinar is recorded. So yeah. So you'll get a link to watch this recording. If I went too fast, usually I get pretty excited when I start to talk about marketing. So I'm bringing myself back. If we have any other questions, went a little bit over time. I wanted to kind of wrap it up in 45 minutes because I know that a lot of you have busy days. It is Wednesday, so it's the middle of the week. You're probably getting ready for some things on Thursday and Friday, and obviously the weekend. And I know that the busy season is not so busy next month, so really appreciate your time. Recommendations for landing pages. So here are my recommendations for landing pages. There's HA Media. which basically they'll help you design your pages. But again, the platform they're using is WordPress. So WordPress is a really, really good platform for websites and landing pages. The other place I would recommend is Lead Pages. Lead Pages offers more of a landing page, more focused on conversion versus more of an experience. So Lead Pages, just make sure if you're using Lead Pages that it actually connects to your site and your homepage. Hopefully that answers your question. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'll make sure to get out those links. I want to thank you so much for joining us. We really had a full crowd today, so I'm really excited about that. I know it was different. I know it was like lead gen. Oh, he's going to talk about how to get more leads. Well, if you have the tools, that's great. But if you don't have the process to use the tools, they're just not going to be effective. So that's why it's key to have a process. That's why it's key to have workflows. And we're really excited for the opportunity to provide you this platform that you can just put your brain into Realvolve, push a couple buttons. If it's designed well enough, it's going to provide you amazing results. So, can the client go direct into Realvolve from the landing page? You will need a bridge, as I call it. So if somebody fills out the information on your landing page with the form, like I was showing you, actually Kendall has what is called Zapier. So she has a Zap. When anyone fills out that information, that Zap transfers the information into Realvolve, populates the fields that she wants. So I will go ahead and send out opportunity for you to meet with one of our team members to outline some of the services that we offer in association to get those Zaps set up. So I'll make sure I include that in the email going out. I hope that answers your question, Kate. How about landing pages with BombBomb? That's a very good question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that, Jim. I'm not sure about the landing pages, the landing page information that's being sent from BombBomb to Realvolve. So I'll have to get back to you on that one, Jim. Hopefully that's okay. All right, these are really great questions. Awesome questions. Hopefully you enjoyed the time spent. Hopefully you learned a lot. Like I said, I could talk about this for hours, but I'll lose my voice, and I got a lot of other stuff to do in the other room. So I just want to thank you again for everyone attending. We'll see you again soon. I know this has been quite some time since my last webinar, and I should do more of these. I really have a fun time sharing my knowledge and trying to teach something that you might not have known about how to grow your business. So take care, have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now, and thanks again.